Praise the Lord. Okay. Like he said, I haven't been able to preach for a couple weeks. I hope you missed me. I hope you even noticed that I didn't get to preach for a couple weeks. I'm really excited about the sermon series that we're going to start today. But before we do that, I just have a couple other announcements that Josh didn't make that I need to make. First of all, if you need in the outreach room today, we're going to do it a little differently. If you need something out of the outreach room today, get with Sister Kathy and she'll get that stuff for you. Right now, we're utilizing a lot of that space for the supplies that we have for those displaced by the tornado. So there's not really a lot of room in there to walk or move around. So we're going to have Kathy go in and get it for you. If you need something out of the outreach room, just see her after service and she'll make sure you get what you need. Also, it's a bittersweet Sunday because Chris, Charles, and Brittany are moving to California after today. Chris and Charles Balderston. And if you don't know them, you should have met them. Because Chris, Charles, and Brittany are some wonderful people, and we hate to be losing them. But we want them to know how much we love them, how thankful we are for everything that they've done for us. Can we just give them a round of applause? And we're going to be praying that one day they move back to Kentucky. And we get them back. Amen. All right, with that said, in 2019, I came across an article about a man who was jogging in Colorado when he was attacked by a mountain lion. Evidently, he was not only able to fend off the mountain lion, he ended up killing it with his bare hands. And as I read that article, I thought about how cool of a story that would be to tell. If I killed a mountain lion with my bare hands, I would lead into every conversation with that, whether it was appropriate or not. Every financial board meeting, every leadership meeting, every random conversation at the gym would start something like, by the way, a lion attacked me one time. I killed it with my bare hands. I can picture myself sitting across the table from Kenley's future boyfriend saying, have her home at 10. By the way, did I tell you I once killed a mountain lion with my bare hands? Don't try me, son. Somebody would say something like, and he was lying, and I would be like, what'd you say? There was a lion? Did you know that I once killed a mountain lion with my bare hands? I would probably get a tattoo that says lion killer. I'm not going to lie. Probably have a lion killer tattoo. But the story took a turn a few days later when park officials found the mountain lion that this man had killed. And it turned out to be a 24-pound, 3-month-old kid. Which obviously changes the whole feel of the story. It just doesn't resonate as much when you say you killed a 24-pound, 3-month-old kid. And the reason I share that story is because sometimes what initially seems like a feat of strength turns out to be something else entirely different. There are certain coping mechanisms, certain attributes, certain characteristics that we associate with strength that aren't really strength at all. In fact, they're weaknesses. Hence the title of this sermon series, Strong Weakness. This was a really hard sermon for me to write because it hit me close to home. 2 or 3 months ago, I was dealing with something, and and I wanted to ask a group of people to pray for me. So I typed out a short, nondescript, vague message. But even though it was short, nondescript, vague, I couldn't bring myself to hit send. It's like I wanted to ask for help, but when I opened my mouth, the words just wouldn't come out. I knew this wasn't healthy, and it set off alarms in my mind. So I started reflecting, and I realized I tend to struggle silently. When I'm going through something, I get quiet. When I have a problem and no answer, I get quiet. When I'm confused and frustrated, I get quiet. When I'm spent and exhausted, I get quiet. When I'm discouraged, disappointed, devastated, dejected, I get quiet. It's about the only time that I get quiet. I know you may not have known this, but my personality is loud. So if I'm quiet, I may tell you I'm fine, but at the very least, I'm tired, and at the worst, I'm drowning. When I'm going through something, I get quiet. I distance myself from people. And because of those choices, I end up fighting battles alone. When I was going through my own personal health crisis, not many people in the church knew how bad it got. Not many people knew how much pain I felt or the hopelessness that I experienced. And the reason that not many people knew is because I didn't talk about it. There was something very uncomfortable about me telling people that I was losing the will to keep fighting, that there were moments where I didn't want to live. I just sort of kept everything close to the vest, smiled through it every Sunday, and only spoke about it when I absolutely had to. I tend to struggle silently. And what's bad about this is I get quiet, and then people assume that I'm upset with them. And so they begin to distance themselves from me, thinking I'm mad at them, which makes me feel even more alone and isolated. I think sometimes when you're a leader, you feel the weight of the expectations that people place on you. You feel the pressure to live up to the standard that they set for you. You feel the need to play the role that they want you to play. And as a result, it's easy for your position to become its own prison. And I'm not just talking about positions within the church. I'm talking about those of you who are in charge of people through your career, those of you who are parents, those of you who have a substantial influence over the people in your surroundings. It's really easy for your position to become its own prison. I'm not sure when it happens, but at a certain point it becomes much harder to open up about what you're dealing with and going through. Eventually, layers of fabricated isolation separate you from everyone else, and you begin to experience a deep sense of perpetual loneliness. Even when you're surrounded by people, even when you're conversing, even when you're laughing and smiling, there's a distance there that can only be described as this continuous, perpetual loneliness. Henry David Thoreau said it this way: most men lead lives of quiet desperation. They'll tell you they're good. They'll tell you they're fine. They'll tell you they're all right. But just beneath the surface, they're struggling. They're lonely. They feel segregated. They feel isolated. They're discontented. They feel hopeless. Most men lead lives of quiet desperation. Evidently, this is something that's common for a lot of people, because recent studies have shown that 33% of the world's population report feeling lonely. And what's interesting is that there was no difference between those that are married and those that are single, those that are older and those that are younger, those that are richer and those that are poor. 33% of the world's population reported feeling lonely. And according to one of these studies published by Brigham Young University, loneliness is as strong a predictor of early death as alcoholism or smoking 15 cigarettes a day. What this means is that 1/3 of the world's population is trending toward dying early, and it's not because of a habit or a health condition, it's because of loneliness. In other words, it's not good for men to be alone. And our separation from others, whether it's physical, mental, emotional, or spiritual, is slowly killing us. Men, this is especially true for you. Statistically, we die earlier than women. And one reason we die earlier than women is because we fight our battles alone. Because we try to put on the cape and be everything for everyone, which ends with us completely isolated. And it slowly kills us. Our separation from others is slowly killing us, which may explain why Samson and people like him tend to die early. Samson likely died between the ages of 35 and 45, around the age that I am now. And I don't know if it was his position or the expectations that people placed on him. I don't know if it was the uniqueness of his gift or his status in the community, but Samson lived a life of isolation. He slept with at least 3 women, but he never fully trusted any of them. He kept secrets from all of them. He was so separated from his siblings that we didn't even know he had brothers until after he was already dead. At least once he paid for sex to try and avoid any kind of emotional attachment. And every battle that he ever fought, he fought completely and totally alone. He never had any allies. He never had any companions. He never had any confidants. He never had anyone to accompany him in times of conflict. When you think about it, it makes you want to ask Samson, who hurt you? Or as kids today say it, bruh, who hurt you? At least that's how Canyon and Kinley say it. I don't know. They're keeping me in the loop. It makes us really want to contemplate who hurt you. And while it's true that he was lied to, deceived, and betrayed, the best man at his wedding ended up sleeping with his wife. His own countrymen turned him over to the Philistines. The only woman that we're told he ever loved sold him out to the highest bidder. He was lied to, he was deceived, he was betrayed. But interestingly, his tendency to isolate predated his pain. We know this because Samson didn't have any friends to invite to his wedding. Judges chapter 14 verse 11 says, when the bride's parents saw him, they selected 30 young men from the town to be his companions. In this sad, weird turn of events, Samson's in-laws had to recruit 30 men to be his pseudo-friends during the week of his wedding. Samson's tendency to isolate predated his pain. I point that out because sometimes we try to convince ourselves that our issue solely originated with what people did to us, with what they said to us, with how they took advantage of us, with how they manipulated us, with how they abused us. But often the underlying trait was a part of us before those people ever stepped into our lives. In fact, the reason we keep finding ourselves in similar situations, the reason we keep developing the same kind of relationships is because we have certain patterns and traits that cause us to walk the same path even when we know exactly where it will lead. Samson's first relationship looked a whole lot like his last relationship. Both women were of the same ethnicity and culture. And I know what you're thinking. Samson had a type. It's okay. But it goes deeper than that. Both women acted solely in their own best interest. Both women betrayed Samson. Both women brought a substantial amount of pain and hurt into his life. These relationships were separated by over 20 years, which tells us that Samson possessed certain traits that caused him to recreate situations in his life. He possessed certain traits that caused him to walk the same path even when he well knew exactly where it would lead. And one such trait of a strong person is that it's easy for your strength to lead to separation. Because you can do it yourself. Because you can go alone. You often choose that route rather than to deal with the frustration and awkwardness that comes with generating a genuine connection. It's just easier to do it yourself. And so your strength leads to separation. Another element of this is that by virtue of you being strong, you develop a lot of dependence. And what do dependents do? You guessed it, they depend. They depend on you to play a specific role in their life. And the more you play that role, the more they expect you to play that role, and the harder it is to ever deviate from it. Some of you play a very specific role in the lives of those around you. You're the problem solver. You're the provider. You're the protector. You're the source of peace. You're the source of courage. You're the source of joy. You play a very specific role, and the thing is, the more you play that role, the more they expect you to play that role, and the harder it is for you to ever deviate from it. I experienced this firsthand. Some of you all cannot handle seeing me in any other light other than pastor. You cannot handle me taking off the pastor hat. It's like seeing a dog walk on its hind legs. It's just weird and awkward, and you have no interest in it. There have been people that left the church because they walked in on an argument that Carrie and I had. We're people too. And sometimes she makes mistakes. She'll get better. Our 18th year anniversary is this month, and I've invested too much time to walk away now. Me and God are still working on her. But there have been people that left this church. I didn't know pastors talk to each other like that. I guess they do when they're mad. She makes me mad sometimes. And I make her mad. I don't know what I do. But apparently, I make her mad sometimes. I can't take people on vacation with me because they can't handle seeing me in any other role other than the man you get on Sundays behind this pulpit. Well, this is not all there is to me. There's a lot of other stuff. Some good, some bad, but there's a lot. And I'm working through it. But the point is, you get stuck in roles sometimes. And you feel the weight of the expectations people place on you. And so it's hard to escape it. What I'm really trying to say is when you feel like you need to be the strong one for everyone, your position has already become its own prison. Your cape has already become its own form of captivity. This is because no one gets to be the one all the time. No one is always the strong one. No one is always the confident one. No one is always the happy one. No one is always the peaceful one. No one is always the spiritual one. No one is always the one with the answers. No one is always the one with the solutions. For example, if we look at the 3.5 years of Jesus' ministry, we see that even though he was the chosen one, at one point or another, he was also the angry one, the sad one, the tired one, the frustrated one, the tempted one. Jesus lived a life of freedom, but he told us to live a life of freedom. You have to resist living a life of fabrication. Jesus was strong, but he never let his strength lead to separation. Remember when Jesus was arrested, remember the night before Jesus was arrested? When he was anxious and stressed out in the garden? He didn't isolate himself or pretend he was okay. He didn't smile and tell everyone he was fine. He opened up about what he was dealing with, and he asked his friends to pray for him. In Mark chapter 14, verse 34, Jesus says to Peter, James, and John, "My soul is overwhelmed with sorrow to the point of death." What's Jesus saying? I'm not okay. And I know this is weird for you because you come to me for answers. You come to me for solutions. You come to me for peace. You come to me for healing. You come to me for breakthrough. I know this is a role reversal that may make you feel awkward and unstable, but I'm not okay. My soul is overwhelmed with sorrow to the point of death. Stay here. Keep watch with me. I know you can't fix this, but I don't want to be by myself. Just stay here. I know you can't change my circumstance, but I don't want to be by myself. Just stay here. I know that I got to go through this and there's no escape out of it because this is God's purpose and plan for me, but I don't want to go through it by myself. Just stay here. You don't have to have a cliche. You don't have to open up a fortune cookie. You don't have to give me a speech. Just stay here. I don't want to be isolated. I don't want to be alone. In this one verse, Jesus shows us that real strength comes from partnering with those that God has placed in your life, not separating from them and attempting to do it alone. Hebrews chapter 12, verse 1 says, "Therefore, since we are surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses, let us throw off everything that hinders and the sin that so easily entangles, and let us run with perseverance the race marked out for us." The first line of this verse says, since we are surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses. What's that mean? It means since we're surrounded by so many great people. Since we're surrounded by so many great people. And then the last line of this verse says, let us run with perseverance. What's that mean? It means the people that God has placed in your life help you to develop the endurance to finish your race. One African proverb that I quoted long before the latest Lion King movie is this: if you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, go together. We help each other develop the endurance we need to not just start strong, but to finish strong. You need people if you're going to finish this race. You're not able to do it by yourself. The Bible is full of verses that teach us how much we need each other. One of the first lessons that we learn is that it's not good for man to be alone. It's not good for man to be alone. Adam was living in paradise. He had no problems. He had no pain, no struggles, no battles. And yet God still looked down and said, this is not right. It's not good for him to be by himself. It's not good for men to be alone. But what I want you to understand from the story of Samson is that when God can't work through the advice of your allies, he has to work through the attack of your adversaries. At the very beginning of his story, Samson was developing an affinity for Philistine women. And his dad said, I don't know, boy. Looks like a train wreck to me. Of course, this is the Message Bible I'm quoting from. I don't know, son. This looks like a train wreck about to happen to me. And Samson said, she looks good in my eyes. And I can imagine his dad thinking, of course she looks good. Every temptation looks good or it wouldn't be appealing. But he didn't listen Those were the only allies he had in his story, and he didn't listen. They gave him advice, and he didn't listen. And so from that point forward, because God could no longer work through his allies, he had to work through his adversaries. Because Romans 8:28 promises us that God is going to work out all things for the good. So if he can't do it one way, he'll do it another way. If he can't work through good decisions, he'll work through bad ones. If he can't work through victory, he'll work through defeat. If he can't work through strength, he'll work through weakness. He's going to work all things out for the good. Ironically, the greatest blessing in Samson's life was Delilah's betrayal. I say that because if he had not lost his sight, he would have never regained his vision. If he had not felt that pain, he would have likely never fulfilled his purpose. If he had not become weak, he would have never discovered his true source of strength. Without Delilah's betrayal, Samson likely continues to live a lukewarm life, walking the broad path through the wide gate that leads to destruction. Jesus once said, if your eye offends you, pluck it out. If your hand offends you, cut it off. Because it's better for you to walk through life blind and maimed than it is for you to have 2 eyes and 2 hands and be cast into hell. What's he saying? He's saying if you make your Father choose between temporary suffering or eternal suffering, he'll always choose the temporary suffering of this life. Because that's what good parents do, right? I've told the illustration many times before. We used to live in a house that was right off Highway 552. And if my son Canyon took off running toward Highway 552, I would dislocate his shoulder to keep him from getting where he was trying to go. And it's not because I hate him. It's because I love him. It's because I see what's up ahead, what's about to happen. And I would rather cause him temporary discomfort than to watch him be permanently destroyed. So God had to work through what Delilah did to position Samson in a place where he could do what he was created to do. Don't misinterpret what I'm saying. Delilah didn't have to be a part of Samson's destiny. If he had listened to his allies, if he had listened to the advice that God had given him, he would have never been in a relationship with Delilah. She would have never been close enough to betray him. But because God couldn't reach him through his allies, he had to reach him through his adversaries. Because he couldn't reach him through friends, he had to reach him through foes. So what I'm saying is, don't increase your suffering by separating yourself from the people that God has placed in your life. Because ultimately, we can't get where we're going without depending on someone else. You can do it willingly, or you can do it out of necessity. But the truth is, you will ultimately depend on someone at some point. And those of us who are strong, we hate that. Because we're the givers. We're the problem solvers. We're the fixers. We're the builders. We like to step in, take control, and make everybody else's life better. We don't like to depend on other people. We're like Peter. Jesus, I'll wash your feet. I'll wash your feet. 7 times a week and twice on Sunday. I'll wash your feet, but I have a weird problem with you washing mine. I can wash yours, but you're not going to wash mine. You can depend on me, but I don't like feeling like I have to depend on you. But the truth is, our lives are so interconnected that it's impossible for you to get where you're trying to go without depending on someone. And that's the way God intended it. Because if I do it myself, if I get the victory myself, if I overcome myself, if I climb the mountain myself, and I don't have to ask nobody for nothing, guess who gets all the credit? I do. But if what's happening in my life is the culmination of a lot of different people doing a lot of different things, guess who gets the glory? God does. So he's not going to let you get where you're going without depending on someone else. This is exactly how Samson came out of isolation. Judges chapter 16, verse 26. And Samson said unto the lad that held him by the hand. This was after Samson had been arrested. This was after his eyes had been gouged out. His hair had been cut. This was after it seemed to be over. This was after it seemed like the situation was hopeless. Samson said unto the lad, suffer me that I may feel the pillars whereupon the house standeth, that I may lean upon them. How did Samson come out of isolation? He did 4 things. Number 1, he recognized his own limitations. There are some things you are good at, and there are some things you are horrible at. There are some things that you excel at, and there are some things where you don't have what you need. We have to all recognize our own limitations. For the first time in Samson's life, he realizes, I can't do this myself. Even if I had the strength, I don't have the vision to get where I'm trying to go, so I have to depend on somebody else to lead me there. He acknowledges his own limitations. The first sign of humility we see from Samson is an acknowledgement of his own limitations. And number 2, he asks for help. He doesn't just acknowledge his limitations, he asks for help. He asks for help from someone that the world would say has nothing to offer him. This is a little boy. What can he do? What does he have? But Samson humbles himself enough to ask for help from the person that God has placed in his life, whether he thinks that person has anything to offer him or not. Can you help me? Can you stay with me? Can you just talk to me on the phone? Can you pray with me? Can I get some help? And the third thing he did, he partnered with someone. It wasn't just about asking for help. It was about realizing that God has strategically placed you in this position so that we can work together, so that God's purpose and plan can be fulfilled. This was about a partnership. You do what you do best, and I'll do what I do best. You excel at your gift, and I'll excel at my gift. You work what you got, I'll work what I got. That's for the sinners, you know. He partnered with someone. And then the last thing he did is he established a relationship based on God's purpose and plan rather than his own desperation and desire. This is the first time in Samson's life he established a relationship based on God. It wasn't about his lust. It wasn't about his desire. For the first time, he said, God has put people in my life because their plan and my plan come together, because God's purpose for them and God's purpose for me is so interconnected that we need each other in order for God to accomplish and achieve what he set out to accomplish and achieve. And just like that, Samson came out of isolation. See, here's what's crazy. When Samson is blind and bald, standing there between the pillars of the temple, we think he's weak. But for the first time in his life, he's strong. He's strong because he's no longer doing it by himself. He's no longer fighting battles by himself. As the worship team comes, and as you stand to your feet if you're able, if you're here today and you're saved, I know that I'm not the only one with this coping mechanism of silence. I know I'm not the only one that gets quiet. I know you may have told 7 people how okay you were, how fine, well, that don't work, how good you were as you walked in. You told people nothing's wrong. Nothing's going on. But there's a lot taking place beneath the surface. And I know you don't like to depend on anybody, and you're self-sufficient and you're independent and you like to figure it out, and you think if you watch enough YouTube videos you can do anything. But God told me to tell you, your first step toward real strength will be being brave enough and courageous enough to say, I'm not okay. This load that I'm carrying is heavy. I got a problem right now and I don't have an answer. I'm in the middle of a storm and I can't see my way out of this. And I'm not sure how it's going to end. And it's tearing me up and it's keeping me up at night. And although I would love to keep it all close to the vest so nobody really knows, I can't do that anymore. I've got to follow Jesus' example. When Jesus was stressed and overwhelmed, he said, just stay here with me. I just need you to know that I'm not okay and I need your presence. I need your company. So if you're here today and you're saved and you're going through something, I don't know what it is, but you're going through it. And you really haven't told many people about it. You haven't opened up. You haven't put yourself in a vulnerable position. But you heard this message and it resonated with you. It resonated with you to the point that you know God is speaking to you right now. And you know your first step toward real breakthrough, your first step toward real healing will be having a conversation with Jesus about opening up and trusting those that he's placed into your life. So if you're here today and you're saved and you believe this message is for you, I want to invite you to this altar to have a conversation with Jesus. If you're here and you're saved and you know you can't be silent anymore about what you're dealing with and what you're going through, I want you to come to this altar. And I want you to sit with Jesus as he gives you the courage to open up to those that he's placed in your life. Because he's anointed them to help you through this. He's anointed the people that he placed in your life to help you get where you're trying to go. If you're here today and you're lost, like you're trying to figure this life out by yourself. But I want you to know that Jesus said he wants to be a friend that sticks closer than a brother. He wants to be your constant companion. He said, I'll never leave you. I'll never forsake you. He's reaching out his hand to you right now. The question is, will you reach back? Heaven and hell all comes down to who you know. Jesus will either say, well done, thou good and faithful servant, or he'll say, depart from me, I never knew you. But if you die and go to hell, the chief indictment against you won't be the drugs you took. It won't be the people you slept with. It'll be that he reached out his hand and you pushed it away. He wanted to know you, but you didn't want to know him. So if you're tired of doing life by yourself and you want someone who will always be on your side, if you're ready to believe in your heart and confess with your mouth that Jesus is Lord, I want to invite you up here to this altar to pray, to give your life to Jesus. There's already people here, so you're not going to feel isolated or alone. There's going to be people here praying with you. So if you're here today and you're lost and you want to make that decision, I want to invite you to come now. Whether you do it at your seat or you do it up here at the altar, let's all corporately have a conversation with Jesus.